BMW's M2 proves that the Munich marque can still make accessible, thrilling performance models that prioritise rapid response and a uniquely involving driving experience. If you yearn for super sports cars like they used to be, you'll absolutely love it.
Back in 1985, BMW launched a car called the M3. There was nothing else quite like it. A racer for the road with 4 seats and everything Munich knew about motorsport technology plumbed into this lightweight engine beneath the bonnet. Driving it was a living, raw, exhilarating experience. The kind of thing that today's sharp-suited M3 and M4 models can't quite duplicate for all their extra power and sophistication. But here, perhaps, is a BMW that can, the M2. The Munich maker's M division certainly needs this car. Since its turn to turbocharging back in 2011 with the 5th generation M5, its products have become more sophisticated, but arguably at the same time, slightly less involving. New generation turbo engines certainly achieve the target of extra speed with greater efficiency, but they develop that power so low in the rev range that whole layers of electronics are needed to keep things in check. As a result, in a modern M3, M4 or M5, it can be hard for real enthusiasts to feel quite the sense of satisfaction they enjoyed in earlier models. What was needed was something simpler and more straightforward. Not a stripped-out racer with an inflated collector's item price, but an affordable, everyday usable, entry-level M car able to deliver a dramatic cocktail of speed, drama and drivability. The car, we're told, exactly like this M2, launched here in the autumn of 2015. Now, in analysing it, you might be disappointed to find that its basic fundamentals aren't actually very different to those of an ordinary M240i, the flagship model in BMW's ordinary 2 Series coupe range, and a car costing substantially less. Don't worry though, almost every aspect of this M2 has been taken apart and lovingly refettled for motorsport-minded owners. As a result, it's a bespoke performance road racer, exactly as every M car should be. Under the bonnet, the straight six gets a single turbo rather than the pair featured by larger M models, but the active M differential, the M servotronic steering, M compound braking system, and if you want it, the M DCT paddle shift auto transmission all come straight from the pricier, more powerful M3 and M4 twins. Add into this lighter, more agile package, lightweight M suspension, an M quad sports exhaust system, and grippy, made-to-measure Michelin Sport rubber, and you have a potentially addictive recipe. Time to put it to the test. You'd expect plenty from a BMW bearing a badge like this. The Bavarian marque has, after all, produced some legendary M cars over the years, but not recently. Not until now, anyway. Or at least that's the promise offered by this M2. Settle in behind the wheel and first impressions are good. Everything seems just right. The driving position, predictably perfect. But what about that engine? Sounds good, doesn't it? Rich, loud and sonorous. It sets the stage for, well, what? We're about to find out. We ought to start with the engine, since it's fundamental to the appeal of this car. Now, it's not a bespoke M division power plant, nor does it boast the twin turbos used by larger BMW M models. Instead, this 3-litre straight six is a development of the unit that used to be used in the M235i, with boost pressure provided by a single twin-scroll turbo. It's had a lot of love lavished on it though, with pistons, liners, big end bearings, an oil pump and a sump, all borrowed from the unit used in M3 and M4 models and optimised towards the possibility of track use. As a result, there's 465 Newton-meters of torque, although a mid-range overboost function can increase that figure to 500 Newton-meters when you really put your foot down and threaten the 7,000 RPM red line. Overall power is rated at 370 brake horsepower, 35 brake horsepower more than the old 1 Series M Coupe, and just enough to shade direct current rivals like Audi's RS3 and Porsche's Cayman S. This output is, though, only 30 brake horsepower more than you'd find in the next model down in BMW's 2 Series hierarchy, the M240i. Ah, yes, the M240i. Well, quite frankly, we came into this test expecting a conclusion that would recommend that car over this one. After all, this M2 is £10,000 more expensive than that lesser variant. It develops exactly the same level of torque and is only 0.3 of a second quicker from rest to 62 miles an hour. So how does that add up? Well, like this. Well, I've just executed what is apparently called a smoky burnout, there to allow you to indulge in a degree of wheel spin while the car is travelling at low speeds. Now, if cremating the bespoke Michelin rubber in that kind of fashion sounds highly irresponsible to you, then you might as well switch off right now, because you're really not going to enjoy this car. Have they gone? Good. I'll continue by telling you that smoky burnout is just one of a whole range of carefully developed elements that makes this motorsport engineered road racer rather than merely a very fast performance coupe. Yes, you have to pay for that, and yes, it is so worth it. Actually, the biggest part of the development budget went not on the engine, but on the platform attachments that get its torque to the tarmac, which is just as well, given that some of this car's key competitors have four-wheel drive to help do that. Here, it's the same rear-driven setup that every proper BMW should have, embellished with a lot of good stuff from the M parts store, the M4's wide-track forged aluminium suspension setup, for example. What you don't get is the adaptive damping fitted to more powerful M cars. The men from Munich spent a long time tuning the suspension setup on this car, and they don't want you fiddling about with it. Thank you very much. Well, at least not on the move. There's an optional manually adjustable damping package for track day fiends who want to more precisely adjust the suspension field to suit their driving style, but well, we really don't think we'd bother with that. The standard setup is, after all, very difficult to better. Though as firm as you'd expect it would be, there's also enough compliance built into the chassis and the made-to-measure Michelin Pilot Sport tyres to reasonably well absorb most of the imperfections of our country's terrible tarmac. That's important not only when you're ambling along, but also when you're driving at 10 tenths on a challenging road. Throw this car into the kind of bumpy mid-speed corner that would unsettle many of its rivals, and you can still keep your right foot firmly planted, the M2 tracking straight and true, almost oblivious to undulations placed in its path. Further helping here is another key engineering feature separating this car from lesser 2 Series models, the Active M differential. This electrically controlled multi-plate limited slip diff was first developed for M3 and M4 models and has a locking effect that can be varied according to the steering angle, the throttle position, the brake pressure, the engine torque, the wheel speed and the yaw rate. Using all this data, the control unit analyses the driving situation, detects a threat of traction loss on one side of the car, and then calculates the amount of differential locking required, all within just 150 milliseconds. It's very effective, although fortunately not to the point where you're left feeling that the car's doing everything for you. If you want to further up the level of personal involvement, the DSC stability control offers a selectable M dynamic mode that lets the rear slide around a little but keeps a final safety net in reserve should ambition get the better of your talent. This sort of feeling of invincibility is a bit of a danger for M2 buyers. Such is the confidence this car can inspire when you're driving it hard. One of the reasons you feel that so keenly is the brilliance of the speed-sensitive M Servotronic steering, an electrically powered setup that owners graduating to this car from the old 1 Series M Coupe may initially view with suspicion. They needn't worry, this setup is old school in terms of the feel and feedback it offers, yet modern in that, unlike the old M Coupe, it doesn't require you to wrestle the car from apex to apex. You can adjust its level of feedback too, steering being one of the parameters you can tweak via comfort, sport and sport plus modes using this driving experience control rocker switch by the gear stick. The other two parameters cover throttle response and the stability control threshold. Oh, and gear shift timings too, if you opt for the M dual clutch automatic transmission that we're trying here. BMW tells us that over 70% of M2 buyers are likely to go the auto route, which we think is rather a pity on such an old school performance road racer like this, particularly as the engine has spent so long perfecting the lovely snickety action of the close ratio 6-speed manual stick shift. At least give it a try before becoming a paddle shift person. Even on the manual model, there's a rev matching system that blips the throttle when you change down, copying the heel-to-toe action that a pro driver would use to achieve the same result. Still, we can see how the MDCT Auto Box is better suited for day-to-day use, and ordering it does get you that smoky burnout feature I was trying earlier, along with a launch control function that delivers perfect starts every time. A perfect start, of course, is a very quick one, and sure enough, launch control takes a couple of tenths off the manual model's 4.5 second rest to 62 miles per hour sprint time. Enough to keep this M2 on a performance par with the rival models I mentioned earlier. Top speed is limited to 155 miles an hour. Annoyingly, our market isn't being offered the M drivers package that includes a software tweak to up that to 168 miles an hour. The acceleration, though, is of course what really counts. This car's single turbo format means that when you stick your right foot down, the response isn't quite as angry or urgent as that you get in a twin turbo BMW M3 or M4. The performance stats, though, are just as good as you get with those cars, thanks to this lighter 2 Series model's much better power to weight ratio. As a result, even on a power-orientated circuit like the famous Nürburgring Nordschleife, an M2 can record a 7-minute 58-second lap time that's just 12 seconds short of an M3, which is mightily impressive given that car's 61 brake horsepower power advantage over this one. For track use, of course, you're going to need a serious set of brakes, and you get them in the form of the M compound braking system borrowed from the M3 and M4 models, with its fat, metallic, blue 4-piston calipers. BMW doesn't offer the optional carbon ceramic discs that would be available on pricier M models, but fortunately the standard M compound setup is quite good enough for you not to need them, stopping the car so effectively that impossibly late braking tends to become a bit of a habitual sin. What's this M2 like, though, when you're not quite so focused on ringing the last few revs from that singing straight six? When the rain's pouring and the traffic's festering at the end of the kind of day that made it possible for you to afford such an exotic Munich-made performance coupe in the first place? Well, very usable is the answer. You don't get quite the refinement that you would in an ordinary 2 Series coupe because in order to pare back weight, around 10 kilograms of sound deadening material has been removed from the body shell. Cruising noise levels are still acceptable though, with a richly emotive soundtrack that's very easy on the ear. So yes, long distance trips are comfortably achievable. An M2 buyer might want to drive a street racer, but he or she won't necessarily appreciate extreme degrees of aesthetic excess. You might, after all, have to park this BMW in the company car park. If so, you want to do that without the CEO raising an amused eyebrow the next time you brush shoulders in the corridor. Hence the level of restraint that the Munich maker has shown in creating this car's purposeful but potent look. That said, on first acquaintance, you'll be left in no doubt at all that this M2 means business, and its swollen wheel arches, its deep bumpers and chrome-tipped quad tailpipes are quite enough to evoke quiet respect from those who know what they're looking at. Refreshingly, everything you see is there to make the car go faster. Take the flared bodywork here at the front, 55mm wider than it would be on a standard 2 Series coupe in order to accommodate the wider front track needed for the more serious forged aluminium suspension setup shared with M3 and M4 models. The heavily structured front bumper boasts these integral winglets that are used to channel cooling air to enlarged ducts. Plus, there are what BMW calls air curtains, ducts in the front apron which channel airflow back from here so that it exits at high speed through a narrow opening here in the wheel arch. This jet of air effectively covers the side of the front wheels like a curtain and so reduces turbulence. The profile is no less arresting, with sweeping creases, aerodynamic sill extensions and these lovely side grills. Plus, the wider track also allows the fitment of these bigger 19-inch M double-spoke wheels. Now, according to BMW's design chief, Karim Habib, the M2's look will influence a whole fresh generation of M cars. And in profile, you can already start to see how traditional styling cues are being blended with developing ones. As you'd expect, this model is shorter and narrower than a current generation M3 or M4, although it sits 10mm lower to the ground with a meaner, more ground-hugging stance. Dimensionally, a closer match lies with the kind of previous generation M3 coupe that many buyers will either have owned or perhaps lusted after. Maybe a third generation E46 model made between 2000 and 2006. Though this M2 is significantly wider and taller than that car, while retaining the classic C-pillar Hofmeister kink that's such a staple of BMW design. The horizontal lines of the broad rear end emphasise this car's firm grip on the asphalt, with the boot lid topped by an M spoiler. A potent diffuser is incorporated into this lower apron, and it's flanked at either side by the twin chrome-tipped tailpipes of the M Quad sports exhaust system. All of this makes quite a difference, reducing lift by over 35% over a standard 2 Series coupe, which is important given that the old 1 Series M coupe could get so unsettled and twitchy at high speed that M Division engineers ended up having to offer buyers a stabilising aero kit to settle it down. Under the skin, things are perhaps a little less sophisticated, something you might guess if you were to peruse the stats and discover that this car weighs virtually the same as a much larger M4. That's down to an all-steel body that features very few of the aluminium and carbon-influenced weight-saving structural measures that you'll find in that model. There's nothing wrong with the driving environment though, provided you don't mind a more restrained approach than that taken with the exterior. At first glance inside, there's little to differentiate the cabin from that of any mainstream M Sport trimmed 2 Series coupe, but look a little closer and the changes made become more obvious. The sport seats, the steering wheel and the instrument dials are all unique, and not only because they feature M branding. These low-set Dakota leather trimmed blue stitch seats have adjustable side bolsters for greater support through quick corners. The M multifunction Napa leather steering wheel has a thinner rim than is customary on an M car, and through it you glimpse a bespoke set of dials with a speedo that reaches all the way around to 186 miles an hour and a rev counter reading up to 8,000 RPM. Otherwise, the cabin will hold few surprises for existing BMW owners. There are a few plastic panels lower down the dash that feel quite hard to the touch, but overall the high quality materials and solid construction impress, and it's this general classiness that makes it all feel special rather than any standout detailing. What we think the brand is very good at is deciding what functions should remain as dashboard buttons, like the ventilation and the stereo controls, and which ones should be squirreled away into infotainment system menus, in this case an iDrive setup, which has become one of the very best of its kind. Ah yes, iDrive. The screen for it sits, as usual in a 2 Series, proud of these chrome-trimmed vents at the top of the fascia and set high enough up the dash to allow you to refer to it without taking your eyes off the road. The display isn't of the current trendy touchscreen variety, being controlled instead by this circular rotary dial down by the gear stick. Still, if there is a better, more intuitive system of this sort currently on the market, then we haven't tried it. And included is the BMW Professional Media Package with navigation, Bluetooth compatibility, a DAB tuner, real-time traffic information and an apps interface. Plus an extra cost online entertainment option opening up access to more than 22 million music titles and over 200 internet radio channels. If you're a typical M2 buyer, you'll also be using this screen in concert with a couple of track day orientated apps. With the BMW M lap timer app, driving data from the racetrack can be accurately recorded, bend by bend, and then analysed so you can improve your performance. As you drive, the app can show your GPS position, G-forces and lap times, while also measuring acceleration, and doing so, if you wish, to a certain speed, rest to 62 miles an hour, for example. Track day users are also going to want to download the GoPro app, which allows a GoPro video camera mounted either inside or outside the car to be operated via the iDrive display, which is brilliant. Now, to finish with, we're going to get all practical. So if all you care about is tyre smoke, then you can spend the next few minutes mentally switched off, happily visualising yourself power sliding an M2 around the Nürburgring. If you're actually going to be buying this car, rather than merely dreaming about doing so though, then its spatial versatility will actually be pretty important. Take these back seats. Courtesy of the boxy shape, they're properly usable by a couple of adults, providing that the journey isn't too long. The limiting factor here lies with legroom. Although you get 21mm more of this in the M2 than was on offer from the 1 Series M Coupe model it effectively replaces. True, a comparably performing Audi RS3 or Mercedes A45 Superhatch would offer slightly more room, but bear in mind that with a rival Porsche Cayman S, you don't get any rear seats at all. Although only a couple of people can be accommodated here, a stowage compartment is provided in between, and there's a cockpit-like feel to these chairs that, well, rather suits the character of this car. Most of the time, of course, you'll be using these seats to sling briefcases, jackets or designer shopping bags onto, or indeed folding them down to increase boot space. There's more of that than you might expect too. The 390-litre total cargo area capacity actually being greater than that offered by a supposedly more practical compact performance BMW like the M140i. In fact, even before you start pushing forward the split folding rear bench, you've got more space to play with here than you'd have in an everyday Focus or Golf family hatchback. Plus there are lashing eyes for tying things down and a storage net on the right-hand side of the compartment. Both things there so you don't have to worry quite so much about attacking a few of your favourite back roads on that long route back from the supermarket. The split folding rear bench I just mentioned comes as standard, in which form you get this usual 60/40 fold, which suggests though that you go for the extra cost flexibility of the through-loading ski hatch, which comes with a more flexible 40/20/40 split. In summary then, a race-ready performance car this may be, but it's not without its practical side. The launch price of this M2 at its introduction was just over £44,000, with a further £2,500 premium for the MDCT automatic transmission if you want it, as BMW reckons over 70% of likely owners will. There's only a single coupe body style, so buyers in search of a convertible will need to be satisfied with the M240i, the next model down in the 2 Series coupe hierarchy, and a car available in both fixed and open-topped guises. Now, if you're serious about this M2, then you'll probably first have to factor in the possibility of M240i purchase. That car is, after all, only fractionally slower than this one, and it costs around £9,000 less. What's on offer here, though, is a proper M car, part of a model line that the market values in a different way. In any case, another way to look at it is that an M2 is just as quick as a larger M3 or M4 model, yet it costs around £13,000 less. As to the value proposition against rivals outside the BMW stable, well, there's plenty else you could consider, but nothing that's really quite the same. In terms of drive dynamics, we think the closest alternative is Porsche's Cayman S. It's rear-driven like an M2, and although it has 20 brake horsepower less, the performance figures are very similar. You would have to pay around £5,000 more for the Cayman though, and it wouldn't quite deliver the raw excitement on offer here. So, where would you go to get that? Well, for around £9,000 less than BMW are charging here, a Ford Mustang Fastback in 5-litre V8 GT guise would certainly set the aural pulses flowing, and it goes very fast in a straight line. It's too big and heavy to match an M2 through the bends though. For that, you'll need something from the most powerful breed of hot hatches. Don't think Honda Civic Type R or Volkswagen Golf R though. You need something even quicker. A Ford Focus RS maybe. Or perhaps it's rapid enough and it would save you over £13,000. We can't see many potential M2 customers being tempted though. The Focus simply isn't special enough, and its four-wheel drive configuration removes some of the drivability that you get from an M car like this one. The two other more obvious options that potential M2 customers might also be looking at are also four-wheel drive, Audi's RS3 and the Mercedes-AMG A45. Both cost around £40,000, so there is a saving of around £4,000. And on paper, both offer much the same power and performance combination as this BMW. On a track, though, there would be no contest. In terms of sheer driving satisfaction, an M2 would win your vote every time if you have an ounce of gasoline flowing through your veins. It's a motorsport engineered road racer rather than merely a very fast road-going performance car. Now, if you don't appreciate the difference between those two things, then we'd suggest you buy either that Audi or the Mercedes, because the charms of this BMW will probably be lost on you. If, though, having considered all of that, is still an M2 you really want, then you're going to need to know just how complete the standard specification really is, and just how much more than the asking price you're going to need to pay to create the kind of car that's bespoke to your particular taste. Well, let's see. We'll start outside, where the 19-inch M double-spoke 437M wheels are shod with bespoke Michelin Pilot Supersport tyres. There's also M2 specific aerodynamic body styling for the bumpers and the side skirts, plus a rear spoiler, metallic paint and twin chromed tailpipes. M specific engineering includes the active M differential, a bespoke M dynamic driving mode, and M development for the braking system and the sport suspension setup. Other niceties include washers for the xenon headlamps, cruise control, auto headlamps and wipers, and rear parking sensors. Inside, the M embossed sports seats are upholstered in blue-stitched black Dakota leather, while softer Napa hide trims the grippy little M multifunction steering wheel. You get open-pore carbon fibre interior trim with gloss black highlights, M2 branded door sill finishes, a DAB tuner, and the BMW professional media package, including navigation, Bluetooth compatibility, real-time traffic information, and an apps interface. There's also two-zone air conditioning and an auto-dimming rear-view mirror. On to extra cost items. Now, there's no option for the LED headlights and carbon fibre roof that you get on other proper M cars, and you'll look in vain for adaptive damping or a carbon ceramic braking system too. It is, though, possible for real enthusiasts to refer to the M Performance Accessories catalogue and order lowered, firmer, manually adjustable dampers. These can be tweaked for height, bump and rebound, offering the option of tailoring a setup to your own particular driving style, or one to suit specific situations like track days. Now, if you're interested in that, then you'll probably also want to consider upgrading the standard M Quad Sports exhaust with an M Performance exhaust system, which ramps up the aural excitement with a sports setting and an even louder track mode. The other M Performance accessory options are mainly aesthetic ones. You can get the rear spoiler, the rear diffuser and the mirrors trimmed in carbon fibre. Plus the side vents, the front kidney grills and the side skirts can also be fitted out more aggressively. And inside, well, we'd want the Alcantara trimmed steering wheel. Plus you can get stainless steel pedals, LED door sill finishes and Alcantara and carbon trim for the fascia, the gear stick and the handbrake lever. Away from the M Performance Accessories catalogue, the options available cover things more familiar from more ordinary 2 Series coupe models. Don't listen to the optional Harman Kardon Logic 7 sound system with its 12 speakers and multi-channel DSP amplifier if you fear that your financial resolve might crumble. We'd also be interested in the reversing camera and the comfort access feature that makes it possible to open the car doors without having to use the key, providing, of course, that the key is in your pocket. Plus, you can get those front sports seats heated, kitted out with extra cost lumbar support and fitted with electric operation that includes memory settings. Other niceties include steering wheel heating, power folding mirrors and a sun protection package that adds sun protection glass and a grey shade band onto the top of the windscreen. In theory, the optional glass sunroof seems a good idea too, but in practice it robs you a crucial inch or two of front headroom. Bear in mind too that you'll need to pay extra if you want the through-loading ski hatch that allows longer items to be pushed through from the boot without folding the rear seats. Don't go spending too much on items like these though until you've considered the merits of BMW's various audio and communication options. Most buyers tick the box for the enhanced Bluetooth phone preparation package with a USB interface and voice control. And that's something you'll probably want if you're using this M2 as a daily driver. And we'd want to look at both internet access and the online entertainment package. With these last two features installed, you'll have direct access to millions of music tracks from either Deezer or Napster without the need for a mobile or an MP3 player in the car. Plus, you can access your own music via cloud-based services so that, for example, you could create a playlist at home and then have it available to stream in your car. On to safety, which, as you'd expect with a BMW, is well accounted for. Hence this car's full house 5-star Euro NCAP safety rating. You'd expect the basics, twin front, side and curtain airbags, plus the usual electronic assistance for traction and stability control. Braking too, with a neat brake drying system that keeps the brake discs free of moisture in wet weather. And a multi-collision braking function that, in the event of an impact, will keep brake pressure applied until you come to a complete stop. You also get a very good latest generation DSC Plus stability control system that gives you a bit of leeway when the car's switched into Sport Plus mode, but will ultimately step into the rescue if your ambition outweighs your talent. Other neat safety features fitted as standard include tyre pressure monitoring, ISOFIX child seat fastenings front and rear, and a hill start assistant to stop you from drifting backwards on uphill junctions. There's also the BMW emergency call with teleservices system. Now, in an accident, this can automatically alert the emergency services with your exact GPS location, which of course could be a lifesaver. It is disappointing, though, that you have to pay extra for the city collision mitigation system that's fitted as standard to far cheaper BMW models. One of those that scans the road ahead as you drive at low speeds, searching for potential accident hazards, before, if necessary, helping you brake to avoid them. To get this, you have to pay extra for what BMW calls its driving assistant pack. That's an extra that also includes 3 other electronic safety features. Forward collision warning tells you if you're getting too close to the car in front. A preventative pedestrian protection feature will warn you if someone's just about to step off the pavement in front of you. And finally, a lane departure warning system alerts you if you're drifting to the right or to the left at cruising speeds on the highway. As for other safety options, well, there's a speed limit info feature that pictures road signs as you pass and displays them for you on the dash. And you could also choose to pay extra for a visibility package that includes 2 things: adaptive headlights that turn with the bends and a high beam assistant that automatically dips your headlights for you at night in the face of oncoming traffic. All these things are worth looking at because to control a car this quick, you're going to need all the help you can get. Operating efficiency won't be high on the list of reasons that typical buyers have for M2 ownership, but for BMW, it's important these days for every model to be as frugal as it reasonably can manage to be. In truth, the M2's cause is slightly hampered in this regard. For a start, the 3-litre straight-six engine it uses is one of the Bavarian marque's older designs. It's the one created for the now deleted M235i model rather than the newer, more efficient unit that powers that car's replacement, the M240i, a car that, by the way, is 25 kilograms lighter than this one. All those M performance modifications take their toll on the scales. Considering all that, the quoted figures actually aren't that bad. A manual gearbox M2 delivers 33.2 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and 199 grams per kilometre of CO2. Opt, as most buyers will, for the automatic MDCT gearbox we're trying here, and those readings improve to 35.8 miles per gallon and 185 grams per kilometre. Overall, you're looking at a showing that's only about 10% worse than you get in an M240i, and one that's very comparable to that you'd achieve in a rival four-cylinder Porsche Cayman S. We do also have to point out, though, that those returns aren't significantly better than those you manage in a much more powerful BMW M car like an M3 or an M4, which is disappointing given that an M2 is 25% lighter. Venture onto a track and, as with those cars, frugality goes right out of the window. Driving hard on circuit, an 8 or 9 miles per gallon showing would not be unusual. Still, in more normal use, you should at least get some of the benefits of BMW's efficient dynamics technology, which includes features like electric power steering, brake energy regeneration, and an auto start-stop system to cut the engine when you don't need it, stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights. What else? Well, as usual with a BMW, there's a condition-based service indicator on the dash to advise you when your car needs a garage visit. But new to me was the clever teleservices feature that comes as part of the BMW Connected Drive services you can access through the iDrive infotainment system. Via this, before each service appointment is due, your M2 can put in a teleservices call to your nominated BMW service centre, complete with detailed information on vehicle condition. You'll then get a call to arrange a service appointment, and that's something that you will already have budgeted for if at the point of original purchase you opted for one of the two fixed cost service inclusive or service inclusive plus packages, which cover you for 5 years or 50,000 miles. Onto the warranty package, which lasts for 3 years, no matter how many miles you complete. As for insurance, well, you're looking at a rating right up at Group 42. On the bright side, though, residual value should be very good indeed. Well looked after examples of the car that this one effectively replaced, the old 1 Series M Coupe, still routinely fetch more on the used market than they cost when they were new. This M2 is being produced in larger numbers, so its residuals might not be quite as bulletproof as that, but it'll still command a very strong resale value. BMW's initial allocation of M2 models was sold out almost immediately after launch, so it's clear that demand for this product is very strong. Certainly, there'll be plenty of eager buyers keen to take your M2 off your hands when time comes to sell. Driving enthusiasts will often tell you that sports cars aren't what they once were. With four-wheel drive and electronic interference rife in modern performance machines, almost anyone can buy such a thing and drive it very fast indeed. So where are the cars you have to master? The ones you have to tame? Where yours are the risks and yours the rewards? Well, most manufacturers no longer make them, but BMW does. With compact dimensions, reasonably lightweight body, explosive power, rear-wheel drive and almost realistic pricing, this M2 satisfies just about every wish on an old-school enthusiast's tick list, and does so in a way that truly recaptures the spirit of original M-Power models. Now, if you've tried an M3 or an M4 and came away impressed but just a little underwhelmed, don't give up on the Bavarian brand. Just go and drive one of these. As one writer pointed out, if the M3 is a hunting rifle in its approach to delivering powerful performance, then this car's attitude is more akin to that of a sawn-off shotgun. It might not be pretty, but it's pretty darn effective, and something you mess with at your peril. A race car for the road, just as every true M car should be.